This episode contains material that may be triggering to some individuals. Please check the show notes for more information and be mindful of your own mental health and comfort levels. Hey, it's Chelsea. I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for tuning in and being a part of the Quiet Connection community. Did you know that you can support me and gain exclusive perks by subscribing to my Patreon account? By becoming a subscriber, you'll get access to bonus episodes, ad-free listening, exclusive chats, and even monthly goodies in the mail handmade by me. Your support helps me continue creating high-quality content and ensures that we keep spreading awareness and ending the stigma surrounding perinatal mood and anxiety disorders and so much more. Head on over to Patreon, search Quiet Connection Podcast, and join the community of listeners who are helping me make this podcast the best it can be. Welcome to Quiet Connection, a podcast dedicated to ending the stigma around postpartum mental health. I'm Chelsea. Today, I have the privilege of connecting with Emma, a survivor of postpartum psychosis who is making a tremendous impact by raising awareness and fostering solidarity around this specific perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. She shares her story with candor and has a remarkable ability to look back and find humor within the darkness. She shares so many incredible tips on spotting the warning signs of PPP and how you can help a friend or loved one if you suspect that they are in the midst of it. Here's Emma. Hello. Today I'm here with Emma. Emma, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you? Thanks, Chelsea.
I'm doing really well. If you can't tell, listeners, we are once again across the world in Australia.
We certainly are.
And yes. So Emma's in the future. For me, it's Sunday night, and for Emma, it's Monday day.
Monday morning, 10:30.
Yes. So I always find that so funny whenever I have my guests who are abroad. Yeah.
Yeah, so bizarre.
It is, but you know what? It's cool. It's very, very cool. So I would love it if you could sort of introduce yourself and let my listeners know who you were before you were a mom.
Yes, so I'm Emma. I will be 28 next week.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you. Crazy. This year has just, oh my goodness, it's just flown. But yes, so I have a beautiful 3-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old, soon to be 2-year-old daughter. And they are just the light of my life. I love them and I love my family. My partner and I, we've been together for 12 years. So
wow,
a lot of history there. And I so love being a mum. But I was an entirely different person, as you said, Chelsea, beforehand. I still like to think I'm lively and bubbly, and there's part of the old me in there, but some existing mental health issues and things like that pre-mum, just like it just skyrocketed in the last 3 years. So that's why I'm here to talk about that sort of stuff. I'm on the other side, thankfully. I still have my dark days. Yeah, I was just saying to you, Chelsea, I just came back from seeing my psychologist. That's my self-care for the day.
Yeah.
But that's it pretty much.
That's you in a nutshell. I also just realized, listeners, so I'm wearing my Bluey sweatshirt and you're wearing a USA shirt.
I didn't even notice that.
I didn't notice it until just now. Yeah, we both were channeling it.
Sports club, apparently.
Very nice. Very nice.
That's great. My cleaning wear.
Love it. Yeah, my PJs, your cleaning wear.
Yeah, amazing. Look at us.
Anyway, after that little side note, something that I ask all my guests, which seems like such a silly question, but it really helps me get to know you a little bit better, is, did you always envision yourself being a mom?
No, I didn't. I think I wanted to be a mum. I I wasn't sure when. I wasn't sure if I'd ever be ready. I think I had a lot of doubts. Not that there was, any doubts within my relationship, but like, oh my goodness, is this the person that I'm going to be having children with? I was young. I was 24, turning 24, I think, when I had my eldest. But yeah, we sort of reached a point, my partner and I, where we bought our house. He proposed. And then one day he just said, I think you should stop taking the pill, which was pretty amazing. We unfortunately had a miscarriage back when I was 17, which was, why we can go into that. Why my first pregnancy was just so anxiety ridden and like based off trauma. But yeah, it wasn't until I was like early 20s, really, that I thought, hey, I could do this gig. Give it a go, just dabble in it a little bit.
So when you guys made that decision, obviously, like you just said, you had a previous history. Did you also have a previous history of mental health? Were you say like
absolutely.
mental health struggles?
Yeah. It was primarily, anxiety and depression, a bit of childhood trauma, things like that. But that didn't really say it wasn't on my mind really until I was sort of at the end of my first trimester with our firstborn. I fell pregnant pretty much straight away, which was very, very fortunate. But yeah, of course, I had in the back of my mind, am I going to lose this baby? That's when I went back on antidepressants. I just wasn't coping with the stress.
Well, and you not only had like mental health issues, but like you said, you'd suffered a previous miscarriage. So that that's anxiety inducing when you're going into any pregnancy, when you have that in the back of your mind. So talk to me a little bit about your pregnancy journey. Like, how was pregnancy for you?
My first pregnancy, oh my God, I hated every second of it.
Yeah.
I hated it. I wasn't really unwell, but for the first couple of months, I was vomiting at least once a day, dry reaching. I was just in physical pain. But at the same time, like, oh my God, what is this beautiful thing inside of me? Like, I need to make sure it's okay. So I had the little fetal Doppler, all that sort of stuff.
Wow, you had your own?
I had my own. I bought one online. The second I could hear its heartbeat, I was just listening to it all day. We did the gender reveal, found out we were having a little girl. But I put on a lot of weight as well. And I didn't feel beautiful. I feel like pregnancy can be really like glamorized, and you get consumed by what's on social media. Like, oh my God, this pregnant person, she's so beautiful. Look at her belly. Look at this, her skin. I was not glowing whatsoever.
There was no glow.
Nope. Glow. I was swollen. My tits were like the size of I had cankles. It was horrible. I was just not happy. And I ended up giving birth at 39 weeks. And waddled into the hospital. It was a very long, tedious labour. But the moment she came out, I was just in love. Like, it just made everything so worthwhile. Still to this day, I've birthed 2 babies vaginally. And I still to this day say I would go through labour in a heartbeat. Just the empowerment, I don't know, it was obviously excruciating and I hated every second. Yeah. But it was my birth. I was very lucky to not have any complications during birth or pregnancy for that matter.
It just wasn't super enjoyable, which is totally common.
It is. And look, I think more and more women are opening up to the idea of, oh, actually, I didn't really enjoy my pregnancy, and that's okay. Because it's not really beautiful for everybody. But I made a promise, I made a vow to myself that second time round, because we were trying to conceive. I don't know why again, but no. Like 5 months postpartum was another little baby in there.
Oh my gosh.
And this time round, I said, no, Emma, you are going to enjoy it. Like, just try, People struggle to conceive. There are infertility issues all over the world. I didn't want to take it for granted again. And I didn't. I worked up until like 2 weeks before I gave birth. I looked after myself. I nurtured my body. I was very, very run down. So I guess that's probably where my mental health took the first dark turn, because I was looking after an infant as well. So no wonder I was a bit skinny at this time around.
You were a little busier this time
I was
around.
a little busier. I did, still have the time off work. It was beautiful. Again, another uncomplicated, peaceful birth. But yeah, very, very, very quickly, I think I developed insomnia when I was about 6 months pregnant with our second.
Wow.
Although I had a baby that was sleeping through the night, thank God.
Yeah.
This one, my second, and now I know because she's a little hurricane. She never slept in the womb. So yeah, I just didn't sleep from like 6 months pregnant to probably 3 months postpartum.
Oh my gosh.
And that was
Emma,
why.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, but that period of my life, I pieced together a timeline, and thank God I love my photos and my videos and stuff. But if I didn't have that, it would just kind of be gone, just poof.
Yeah. I will say there is something about second-born children. They are built different. They are cuckoo bananas. My second was the same way. Like, never, ever stayed still. And she's 2.
Yeah.
And still doesn't stay still. But regardless. So after your second pregnancy and your second delivery, you're already coming from a point of little to no sleep. So that's already really, really affecting your mental health. When did you start to notice a shift in how you were coping?
Yeah, it was probably, so my second was born in November of 2022, and it was very early 2023. So it began really subtly. We had her in her bassinet in our bedroom. I was breastfeeding. She was waking, God, every hour. So I'd just put her on the boob. It was rough. My partner was working night shift at that time, so he was set up in our spare room so he could get some sleep. And I was like, that's cool. Quite often, my daughter would end up in bed with me. And like after you have your second, the whole safe sleeping thing, all that, like obviously I made sure it was safe, but I'm like,
yes,
we're mammals. We're going to sleep with our children. We're going to nurture our babies. So she slept with me, an hour at a time. And it wasn't until one morning, I don't know if I was awake or asleep, but let's just say I came to, and she was in her bassinet next to me screaming. And it was like blood curdling. It echoed through the entire house. It was like something off a horror movie. And she had her little finger, how onesies you can pull the mittens over the hands and the feet sometimes. Yeah, I couldn't see her fingers, but her mitten was over her hand. I think it was her little finger. It was bent backward, stuck in the sleeve of the onesie. And it had been like that for God knows how long. And I've taken it out, and obviously, and then it was a bit limp and floppy. There was no circulation to the finger, and it was then in that moment that something just switched in me. And I used to be a nurse, so that became my worst enemy. All of this medical knowledge just went out the window. Called my neighbour, who's also a nurse. Mind you, this was like 4:00 in the morning, and I was,
oh my gosh,
hysterical. I'm like, oh my God, I've broken her finger. Like, what do? I'm going to take her to the hospital. And it was a horrible experience. And then slowly but surely, the pink started coming back. She had good capillary refill, all that sort of stuff. So she was okay. But from there, it was just like I had to protect her. As well as my other daughter. Every part of me, every cell in my body had to protect her. I was just in fight or flight, So I think, a lot of women that experience what I did, they can have very intrusive thoughts. Cases can be tragic. So I never, ever once wanted to harm, my children or had thoughts or anything like that. It was just, I have to do what it takes to make sure that she's going to survive. I felt like the whole world was kind of out to get us.
Yeah. And that was like a reality for you. That was,
Absolutely.
yeah, it was, so do you want to name what it was that you experienced?
Yeah, it wasn't until, things got a bit worse from there, which we could go into, but
yeah, absolutely.
So postpartum psychosis affects roughly 1 to 2 in 1,000 women annually, and I think people see things, on the news and social media. You hear of these absolutely tragic cases of women, taking the lives of their children, taking their own lives. It's so fucked up, and pardon my French, but there's no other way to really, it's horrible. And, the women that may survive, are being imprisoned for murder and sectioned unto, it's just, they're thrown into these mental institutions and psychiatric facilities. And look, I think the world is doing better. I do, but there needs to be more education and better treatment for women experiencing this, because although mine was a relatively mild illness, it could have been, and very quickly could have been, a lot worse.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think things that you pointed out so well are, well, one, I asked you if you want to name it, because that is you. There's a whole school of thought of like, you are not your trauma. And so for some people that means like, I don't want to put a name to it. I don't need to put a name to it.
Yeah.
For others, like for me, I'm of the mindset of like, own your stigma. Like, okay, yeah, this is something that happened to me. It doesn't define me. So it's purely want to make sure that you were in charge of that. But something that you pointed out is that the media only shows us the worst case scenario. And by the media, I mean like the news outlets, but also like movies and TV and stuff. Like when you see postpartum psychosis or psychosis portrayed, it is always the worst case scenario. You're not hearing about the moms like you that did not have thoughts of harming yourself or harming your baby, but still experienced really extreme like delusion.
Yeah.
I hate to call it delusion, but
well, that's the medical term. Yep.
Yeah.
Delusions, hallucinations,
yeah.
As you pointed out before, Chelsea, that was my reality. I was just so convinced that these things were happening. We had bushfires, about 50, 60 kilometres from us around the same time. And where we live is a community that was very affected by the Black Saturday bushfires back in 2009. So in my mind, this was happening, and I just remember, again, coming to, I don't know if I was napping with the kids, but I could vividly smell smoke, and I could hear like the crackling of trees. I could feel heat coming through where I'm sitting now, my bedroom window, and I was like, what's going on? And then I look out my bedroom window and our whole backyard is on fire. Obviously it wasn't.
Yeah, that I was going to ask. It was not on fire.
It was not. I was having a full-blown auditory visual hallucination. It was just like, oh my God, because it was on my TV that this suburb, this community very, very close to us, were being evacuated at that point in time. So that day was my, I suppose, moment of awakening, where I actually really realised what I'd been going through. There were several things leading up to that. But yeah, we got in the car and got the hell out of there, and I dropped my children off to my mom and my mother-in-law, and I took myself to the doctors.
You did. So that you were the one that initiated getting help.
Yeah, which is, it's tough, and that still cuts pretty deep because I've had to advocate for my own mental health and my emotional well-being pretty well my entire life. You know, I was, I suppose, having a bit of a psychotic break and went to see a psychiatrist who was part of my antenatal and postnatal team. And I just remember her asking me if I'd heard of mother-baby units, and I said no, and she didn't provide any other information. That was it.
She did. She just stopped. She's
That
just
was
like
it.
end of.
Yep. She just said, look, I think there could be one within a 50-kilometre radius to you, but you'll have to check it out. And then, prescribed me an antipsychotic medication, but she prescribed it for generalized anxiety disorder.
Okay.
So when I went to see her, I was really paranoid. I probably would have been on the manic end of psychosis. And she just said, you need to sleep. But this particular drug can make you feel very, very drowsy. It's Seroquel. A lot of people that experience psychotic symptoms are on this medication and have wonderful results. But for me, I was like, oh my God, it's making me sleepy. I can't sleep. Every time I go to sleep, something happens. Yeah, that was that. And I'm like, that was your job to protect me in that instance. And I found a lot over the years, being an ex-health professional was quite dismissed. You know how to manage this, this drug, or all that sort of stuff. But I felt like I was never really, treated as the patient.
Yeah.
So that was rough.
Yeah. Did you have anybody in your corner, like in your support system? Like, was your partner even aware of the severity of what was going on?
No. And I think that's the main issue with postpartum psychosis in particular is your friends, your family, your loved ones, your circle, they need to know those early warning signs. They need to be educated because, to them, I was just a bit hyperactive. Like I was in my newborn bubble. I was frantically cleaning. I wasn't sleeping, all that sort of stuff. It can just be so overlooked. But the underlying, but then again, I had my psychiatrist misdiagnose me. Who can you trust? Who can you confide in? Who's going to do their job properly? So I think everybody, like if you're looking at it holistically, everybody needs to be educated and be able to identify those early warning signs. Postpartum psychosis is a medical emergency. Majority of the time requiring hospitalization. I was very, very fortunate, and I thank my lucky stars every day that I was able to come out of it the way I did. Yeah, my poor family, I think, were just like, Emma is so tired. She's just a little bit loopy. They couldn't quite comprehend what was going on, but I knew that something was not right. This was not what I experienced first time round.
Yeah, and that seems to be, so every case of, every mental health challenge is different and everybody experiences mental health challenges differently. I think something that I'm learning that's specific to postpartum psychosis is that it isn't something that you immediately go to. It isn't something that you're like, oh, she must be having a psychotic break. And it can go completely unnoticed. For some birthing people, it's very obvious and it's very loud and it's very outwardly expressed. But then for other people, it's very internal. And I think a lot of the stigma around it is that we expect these big, scary behaviors, and that's just not always the case. So like you're saying, educating yourself about the early warning signs and knowing what to look for, especially partners and family members. You are obviously a lived experience expert, so you know what your signs are. But for all of our listeners, what are some of the signs that would point to postpartum psychosis rather than postpartum anxiety or postpartum
Yeah.
OCD.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the big one, because postpartum psychosis is usually linked to bipolar disorder. So quite often, for myself, for example, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 2 for the first time after experiencing postpartum psychosis. So the symptoms of mania, I suppose, and psychosis are where, they come from bipolar. So initially, a person may just lose complete need for sleep, maybe extremely fatigued, like I was, yes. But I think the first red flag would just be not sleeping. And then certainly erratic sort of behaviour, which goes hand in hand with mania. So you have your rapid speech, overdrive, hyperstimulation, just hyperactivity. And then, of course, you're running on lack of sleep, but so much adrenaline. You just go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And then quite often there may be some form of delusion, belief. So strange beliefs, for a lot of people, they might go to more the spiritual side of things and think, okay, there's that higher power. Like, I need to be doing this and I have to do this right now because the spiritual gods are telling me what to do. And quite often that's where it can turn very, very dark, because women can start to have these beliefs. So the delusions might turn into auditory and visual hallucinations. And it's not always that the mother is wanting to harm the baby or thinks that there's something wrong with the baby. They, sort of similar to what I did, want to protect, and they might think there is someone out there that's coming to get them. You know, women might be hospitalized for their symptoms, and I've heard stories of women in their wards saying that the cameras and the lights in the hospital were the government, spying on them. And that they were coming to take their baby away. And I read this incredible memoir, and shout out to Ariane Beeston, who works for COPE, Centre of Perinatal Excellence. I've met her, read her memoir.
Okay.
I'm Not Myself, You See, is freaking incredible. It is just the most beautifully raw written story. And Ariane's experience as a professional ballet dancer, and then going into child protective services, child psychology, all that sort of stuff, to then actually being the patient, to being diagnosed with postpartum psychosis.
Wow.
So she had hallucinations of her baby turning into a fire-breathing dragon.
Oh my gosh.
It's insane. So it can be obviously such a very, very different experience for many women, but it's certainly, and I think the thing that maybe my partner picked up on for me is going back to hallucinations. It can be really, really subtle. I was sitting up in bed one morning and could see my partner walking past the door, was on the phone, heard his dad on loudspeaker saying, "Yep, I'll be up this morning. I'll come bring coffee, whatever. I'll see you at whatever time." And then I remember yelling out to my partner and saying, "Hey, what time's your dad going to be here? Like, shit, better get up and get ready." And my partner was asleep in bed. So I was like talking to someone that wasn't
Oh my
there.
gosh. Yeah.
And then when he actually did get up, he goes, "I have not spoken to Dad. Like, he's not coming over." So that was kind of like, I was like scratching my head, like, what just happened? It was completely bizarre.
Because it's not a dream state. It's not a dream state. It's real.
You are totally awake. Yeah. And see, that's the thing. I think, if you're lucky enough to get a little bit of sleep, well, then for me, it was a lot of night tremors, and in the end, I was actually too scared to sleep. So it was, you are so overtired that your brain is actually picturing things and putting things where they don't belong. My dog, I remember, was standing at the end of my bed, and he was the size of a house and was just angry and looking over at me, like, just horrible random things, which can sometimes really be hard for. You can go and share that with your support network and say, oh my goodness, like I think I'm seeing things or hearing things. And they don't really take it seriously. I don't think they understand the severity of it. I mean, if I could have my time again and go through this experience again, I would say to all of my family and friends, new parents, if they are acting any different than they normally would be, doesn't matter how small or how big the difference is, don't just think, oh, they're tired, they're a new mum, they just need some rest. Like, take it seriously. Go and get them, go and take them to see a doctor at the very least. But even then, I would just say, go straight to the emergency department. Like, you don't, after going through this, I don't think you stuff around with things like this.
No. And so like several things stuck out to me with what you were just saying. And also like clarify, every time I say like, wow, it's not like a wow, you're crazy. Wow. Like that must have been terrifying. And the being taken seriously thing, it is an issue for women and people who identify as female. We and they, I identify as non-binary, but are not taken seriously. It's like a default, I feel like a lot of the time. Our symptoms are often, like you said, attributed to like, you need to get some sleep. Or like you need to drink more water. And in those moments when you're at your most vulnerable, and you said you advocated for yourself, which is insanely incredible, but like you needed someone to step in and advocate for you. Like, and even when you did advocate for yourself, you did not get the help that you needed. There's so many questions, and I want to try to like keep it linear, but like, so most of your thoughts and most of your delusional thinking had to do with the safety of you and your children.
Yes.
How did that affect your ability to parent?
Yeah, it was tough because I was obviously looking after an older child as well. And I think it's funny because my face, and I can laugh about it now because it is pretty hilarious. My way of protecting my children was when I became, really unwell. I thought, oh, I'm having a reaction to this medication. I don't like it. I'm going to. So I did, which obviously you're not supposed to. I'm not a medical professional, but do not abruptly stop taking prescribed medication.
Do not abruptly stop taking, especially psychological medication. Yes. I've been on antipsychotics. Yes.
There you go. Yep. No, not a great idea. But I did it. And I did it. And I ended up with mastitis. So I was devastated, but I was quick to treat it, got the antibiotics, all was good. But the couple of days there while the infection had really sort of taken effect, I was going around on my hands and knees looking at, so we live in an older house, brick, but the wooden timber window frames, we get a lot of wet weather up here and condensation, so the wood can rot and then obviously cause condensation on the inside of the window, which can result in black mold. So I remember crawling around on my hands and knees with like the sorest boobs in the world, just on fire. And I'm looking at the windows going, oh my God, and I'm scrubbing them with bleach, and they had dirt and mold and stuff on them. But my youngest was only a couple months old. She'd been really, really sick, congested and whatnot. And I've gone, oh my God. And I had a bucket full of bacterial wipes and paper towel that were just black from cleaning the windows. And then I started looking up like mold poisoning and all this sort of stuff, just went down the rabbit hole completely. I just remember saying to my partner, oh my God, that's why she's so sick. Like she's dying of black mold poisoning. And I was like, oh my God, I can't breathe either. Like it was just this horrible, horrible experience where I'm like, my whole family has been poisoned. And I just went on a manic leaning. Like it was just, I mean, my house was sparkling and I got rid of it.
I was going to say, your house had never been more clean.
one good thing. If you're ever experiencing mania and you like cleaning, that's a good time to just get it all. That helps to all the bipolar people out there. No, that was kind of, and that was obviously me like trying to take care of my family because I thought we were all going to die. That was probably the main delusion that I had, and the voices were telling me like they're going to die. You're not taking care of them. Everyone's going to die.
Yeah.
So I would say I was still able to parent. I wasn't functioning well. Like my milk dried up shortly after. I couldn't breastfeed anymore. I was losing weight. I wasn't really taking care of my personal hygiene. I was a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
I would put everything else aside to ensure my family's happiness and well-being and safety.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And that's really important to note. Again, if we're talking about like ending this stigma and sort of changing the narrative a little bit, and I'm finding again through the research that I'm doing and talking to people like you, the majority of the time it is about protecting your family, and more often than not, almost over parenting or like being overprotective. So yeah, I'm just like driving that point home that the media portrays it in a certain light, but it doesn't look like that for everyone. And for the vast majority of people, it doesn't look like that, but it can. So sort of taking us down the path a little more, like you advocated for yourself, you took yourself in. For listeners who are not familiar with mother-baby units, in the U.S., mother-baby units are just where you go after you have your baby. Like you're transferred from, well, no, like it's not the same thing. So like you go from labor and delivery to the mother-baby unit, and then like a day later you go home.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
So in Australia and in the UK, and I'm sure in other places as well, there are actual mental health inpatient facilities where you can go with your baby.
Yeah. And I hear they're wonderful. They can be wonderful.
Yeah, you deserved a shot at that. Yeah, but it's something. So in the U.S., in the entire country, our country is massive. There are only 2 inpatient perinatal mental health facilities in the entire country, and neither of them include having your baby with you. There is this resource in other countries that exists, and I think it's such a beautiful model. Again, I need to learn more about it too from people who have experienced it, but being able to get the mental health support that you need while also experiencing that with baby. So you're sort of, right? Like, so you're learning, like, we are safe. We are safe.
It's a bonding time. I can't imagine. And I think once I started looking at MBUs, I got really, it wasn't until afterwards, and then I sort of started recovering. I was like, oh my God, we would have really, really benefited from that. It scared me initially because I thought it was, going to be an adult inpatient psychiatric facility, which it is, but I would have had my baby with me. I would have been supported. We would have been able to get some sleep. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten mastitis. All these what ifs. And that's okay. But if I were to ever have another baby, my chances of going through this again are significantly higher now that I've had a single episode. But if I ever notice these signs again, and after having another baby potentially, I would sign me up, pre-book me a spot in a mother baby unit.
Make a reservation.
Yeah, make a reservation. They are saving women's lives, and I will protest and kick and scream and shout and make as much noise as possible. We need to do better. They cannot believe in the whole of the United States there are only 2 psychiatric facilities and you can't have your child with you.
Yeah, it's only 2 inpatient psychiatric facilities specific to perinatal mental health.
Wow.
We have other psychiatric inpatient facilities. They are all horrible.
Yeah.
I can't generalize, but we have a huge mental health crisis in the U.S.
Yeah.
But when it comes to maternal in the U.S., then the leading cause of death postpartum is suicide.
Yeah. I think Australia's statistic is about the same, maternal suicide. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that outweighs like hypertensive disorders and like
Yeah.
hemorrhage. And so there's a huge crisis, and there's absolutely no support. But I just wanted to make that distinction for listeners who are listening to in the US. Like, mother baby units are a beautiful thing in other countries and something that we deserve here and something that you deserve to have access to. Quite frankly, I am, as I'm sure you are, I'm furious at the psychiatrist that you went to see.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I've said
Yeah.
things over the last 12 months. I'm like, what a dickhead. No shit. You know, do
Yeah.
better. Do better.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
and for any listeners out there who want to learn more, my goodness, I think I'm going to get engraved on my tombstone. Like, the Center of Perinatal Excellence, non-for-profit
Yes.
organization. Oh my God. They saved me.
Well, that was going to be my next question. I was going to say, how did you navigate this? How did you get yourself out of this?
But they have these incredible resources. There's an app, a phone app where, you know, you type in your location. There's an e-directory where it links you in with sort of local perinatal psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, etc. They not only educate health professionals in the sector, you know, ebooks and training and all this sort of stuff, but you know, it's a toolkit essentially for new parents, new families that are experiencing mental health. And it wasn't until I started reading about postpartum psychosis, I was like, oh shit, like that's just nailed it on the head. And I printed out all these fact sheets.
Of course, that's part of it. Because
Yeah.
you have to know everything
I printed
about
them all
it.
out. I highlighted everything. I laminated them. I went to see a psychiatrist. He diagnosed me with bipolar type 2. I've gone, right, bipolar type 2 fact sheets. Here you go. I gave them to all my family. And then I started researching. And then I started doing my own research. I started raising awareness. I, created my Postpartum Psychosis Mama Instagram page just to share what I know and what I've learned. And if it wasn't for such incredible resources out there and such a beautiful team of individuals with lived experience and all that sort of stuff and healthcare experience, medical practitioners teaming together and creating accessible materials and information to people. It shouldn't have to be like that. You shouldn't have to dig deep and find your own answers. Like, it was pretty, to hear something, to be told something that I knew deep down, it was hard. I was like, well, I told you so.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't, I don't know if it was this way for you, but it feels like it should be validating, but it's not. It's like, it's more like no shit.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm like, I have been researching this for the last however many weeks. Nobody's been listening to me. And now you tell me that this is what I have, this is what I experienced. But it all just starts to, it all just starts to make sense. Like, it kind of pieced together my childhood, and it made me realize that a lot of this stemmed from the trauma I had from having a miscarriage. Like, it led to a really unenjoyable first pregnancy and then my second pregnancy, so on and so forth. And it just kind of goes to show, how things multiply and how they evolve. So for me, it was also like a screw you to everybody else, whoever just thought I was depressed or crazy. I'm just like, no, it's this.
You're like, told you.
Yeah. And I remember saying it was actually a psychiatrist to diagnose me with bipolar type 2. Then I went on to speak to a clinical psychologist who actually did the diagnostic criteria for borderline personality disorder, which is a good one, which is another very seriously stigmatized mental illness. But I just looked at it, I was like, that also kind of works like that. And like you, I own my title. You know, I was so eager to get some answers because then I'm like, well, hello, then now we know how to deal with it.
Exactly.
So it was great. I was like, this all makes so much sense. So I think, yeah, if that's one thing I can sort of stress to everybody is to just, unfortunately, continue to advocate for yourself and educate your family and friends. Give them laminated copies of handouts like I did and go read it.
It's great and everything that like you can joke about it now and you can laugh
Yeah.
about it now. And that's, I mean, I'm so glad that that's your journey. I am the same way. Like if I can't laugh at my trauma, I don't know what I would do.
If you don't laugh, cry.
Seriously. And I get that it's not that way for everybody.
No, it's not. It's funny. It's not.
No, I mean it's not funny, but the things in my perspective, some of the things looking back, because hindsight's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
When you look back on it, you're like, that was ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the moment, it's not. It's real and it's scary.
Yeah. And you would never dismiss someone else's experience and think that it was funny or anything either. Like, I wouldn't expect people to be listening to my story and going, oh, that's hilarious. You know, just because I'm laughing doesn't mean you can.
And I mean, like, it's like I'm absolutely laughing with you because so much of what you're talking about, like, I can relate. I was hospitalized 3 separate times for suicidal ideation and delusions and everything. And at one of them, I flew to a different state to go to one of the perinatal units. And the doctors didn't tell me, but they told my partner postpartum psychosis was on the table as one of my potential diagnoses. They never told me, and they chalked it up to OCD. But a lot of the things that you're talking about with the delusions of like safety, I was convinced that my newborn had an insanely rare seizure disorder and that she was gonna die. Like, we took her to the hospital. She did the EEGs. I'm like sobbing in the emergency room, like,
oh my God.
And so
yeah.
well, so like I can relate to a lot of it. So when I'm laughing with you, I'm like laughing at myself a little bit too. Like,
yeah, I understand. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So
wow,
whether I leave that in or not, because this episode, this is not about me. This is about you and your story.
It's so important for, I think you're the creator of this. You're holding this safe space for people, which is a beautiful thing. You know, when I've heard some of your stories and you share your things, but it doesn't mean that you can't talk about it with me. Like, I think the more people unite together and go, hey, actually, I kind of experienced that too. Or can I ask you a little bit more? Or can I share my story? And you just, we can just be this great big, you know, undefeatable group of powerful people that have experienced a lot of shit stuff.
We're part of a club that we never wanted to be a part of.
No, not ideal. I mean, not great, but hopefully we can be a part of change.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the goal. And honestly, like, I know it's kind of the same thing that you're doing with your advocacy and talking about it. Like, I'm just one person, and the way that I feel like I can help enact change is by giving voice to people who have been ignored or who have been silenced. So that's why I do try to, like, I am so centered on my guests, because it is your story, and it deserves to be told and it deserves to be heard. But, like, getting us back on track a little bit, like, I think that there's this beautiful and also kind of twisty side to mental health and people who have experienced mental health challenges throughout their lives, that, like, yeah, you have to see the humor in it. You don't have to see the humor in it, but many people see the humor in it, because just like you said, if you're not laughing, you're crying.
You're in a ball, walking in the corner, just not knowing what to do with yourself. Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of people, yeah, they do. They try to find the humor in it. You know, you've seen a very, very dark side of life. You try to see the light, you know, you try to see the fun side of life.
Yeah. So you somehow navigated your way through postpartum psychosis. I also wanted to note, just because I'm throwing facts out this episode for some reason, I guess,
Right.
most birthing people are not diagnosed with bipolar until after childbirth. And many have experienced it throughout their lives and went undiagnosed until after childbirth. So when you said that, I was like, oh, just another just another way that they were brushing you aside.
Yeah. Right. It's so true. And I mean, I don't know if age plays a factor or not. It shouldn't.
I honestly think it's gender. I hate it, and I hate playing the gender card. I hate it.
Very interesting you say that. Yeah, because I do know some males that have been diagnosed with mood disorders, personality disorders, all these serious mental health illnesses much, much younger than I am. And obviously pre-parenthood, if we're talking men, fathers as well. It's really interesting. And no matter how much I spoke of my family history and how much you can tell people, oh, there's actually this in my family, like there's a history of mood disorders. Nobody investigates that. I'll just chuck you on some antidepressants, puberty, women.
Yeah.
Puberty.
Yeah. Are you
hormones.
menstruating?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And if I had have been told what I was told 10, 15 years ago, my experience of pre-motherhood and post probably would have been so different. I probably would have been medicated for the last like so many different factors, many. And, I hope that whether or not my children inherit some of my genes, that's okay. Well, it is what it is. But I will stress to them, and I will stress to anybody listening and everybody that I know, just talk about your mental health. Just do it. Just push. If you want to get yourself a label and title it and get a diagnosis for, fantastic, because there are resources out there. There are people that will help. There are people that will listen. For me, I just wish it was sooner. That's all.
Yeah. And like what you were talking about with like passing on any sort of mental health issues to your children, that's a worry for a lot of parents. It's definitely a worry that I've had. But I think the difference in this generation of parents is that we are talking about it. We're talking about, I have no worries for your children because you are talking about this, and you are loud and saying it with your whole chest. And I know that in the same way that you advocate for yourself, you will advocate for your children. So I have all the confidence in the world that our kids will have a different experience than we did.
Yeah, I hope so. And it's harder for the older generations. I know when I talk to my mum as well, it's challenging for them to understand why we speak so much about it. And every second, young person these days has this. But, I guess it just wasn't it was really taboo back then. It was still there. It existed, just wasn't really spoken about. But I think you look at the statistics and you go, right, people with mental illness, are at a higher risk of taking their own lives. Overdose, substance abuse, substance addiction, all of this horrible life-ruining stuff that they have no control over. And all you got to do is just speak about it and give it a voice, give that person a chance. I don't think that's really, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all.
No, not at all. Not at all.
If it could save a life,
It could absolutely save lives. And that's what we're trying to do. Just because the shame contributes to the silence. And if even just one person listening, to your story specifically, is like, oh my God, I feel that way. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I can say something.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Just normalizing the conversation.
Yeah.
So and I don't even know if we need to go down this path. You talked about maybe potentially having more kids in the future. You know that you're at a higher risk. What sort of does it inhibit the desire to have more kids, or does it just sort of empower you to be more prepared?
Good question. Really good question. I'm on both sides of the fence.
Okay.
Very much so. I mean, I think a lot of my mental health as well is, I'm not going to say the contraceptive pill contributes to it, but it certainly plays a factor.
I will agree with you 100%.
Another joyful thing
Yes.
about being a woman and getting periods and all that shit. Yay.
Yeah. The pill can greatly impact your mental health, especially if you're predispositioned to mental health disorders.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. Yeah. So you throw PMDD in there, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, all that sort of stuff. Like, it can be a really, really rough time for a lot of women. So I don't particularly want to take the pill anymore. Which, of course, then we're looking at other options. But being the age that I am at the moment, and my partner being 2 years older than me, I think we have a little bit of time to sort of just think, okay, well, let's just see how these next couple of years go. I would probably, just so that I could look after myself a little bit better, wait until my children are in primary school. I think that way they're in school. It's just me taking care of me and the newborn. And then, I'll still do the same thing, sort of like look after my mental health and probably see a specialist team and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, you don't know until you know, right? So I don't want to worry myself when it may not even happen. And if it does,
exactly,
well, we just ride the wave.
Yeah, I think that is a super healthy way to look at it. And it goes back to that whole idea of like owning your stigma, which again, I'm not pushing on anyone, that everyone's journey is different, but like owning it and being like, yeah, this is just a part of my journey and could happen, might not happen. We're going to see. We're going to ride the wave and we're going to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's an amazing way to look at it.
Yeah.
So I guess to like round us out, I had 2 questions. I think I'm going to combine them from your lived experience and from how much you've learned through this. How can the rest of us, everyone, parents, non-parents, support people, everyone, how can we better advocate for understanding around postpartum psychosis?
Yeah, again, good one. I think it starts with obviously educating ourselves first, knowing the facts, knowing it doesn't have to be everything, but just a simple statistic, 1 in 1,000 women will experience postpartum psychosis. And a lot of the time, the underlying mental illness may be bipolar disorder. I think to be a successful advocate is to know those things, because then you can just be a voice, and whether that be creating a page or a dedicated group or something. But for me, I don't give 2 shits what anybody thinks about me. They can think I'm bananas. They can think I'm talking rubbish. I don't care. I think being able to stand there and go, right, if you're experiencing this, or you see someone, witness someone experiencing this, this is what you need to do, and you need to do it now. Like, whether that be call an ambulance or go and get the medical attention. If you're friends with a new mother who is crying in a freaking heap on the floor and struggling, and all she wants is her newborn child to just stop crying for a minute, then ask her, what do you need? What can I do? Like, just, I think, to destigmatize and break down those barriers, it's just the simple fact that for a lot of us, we're really, really, really struggling. And we might actually not know what it is that we need or we want. But to have someone listening to us and just understanding and being able to identify, okay, maybe they're not just the baby blues. So I'm not just going to tell her, sleep when the baby sleeps. Don't forget to, If one had told me that, oh my God.
I can't. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. No.
No. you just want to punch him in the face.
Yes.
You do. It's a horrible thing to say to a new parent that you've got no idea what's going on inside their mind, and just knowing, just being able to identify when somebody is not okay and act on it and actually ask them if they're okay.
Yeah.
Instead of having to, reach out for help, exhaust all of your lifelines and feel like no one's listening. It'd be nice to have someone come to you.
I think the underlying thing in a lot of what you're saying is just believe people. Believe people when they tell you that they're not okay. Yeah. And I am in awe of the tenacity and the strength that it took for you to get yourself through what you went through. I mean, I don't have words because I know what it's like to face the darkest dark places, but I know that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my support system. Yeah. So to speak to you and to hear how well you pushed and advocated for yourself despite knowing what was going on around you was terrifying. You're a badass. You are a warrior. You are a mental health warrior.
You've made my day.
Oh, good. Well, you are. You're an absolute badass. You're a mental health warrior. I love what you're doing to spread awareness and to spread resources and knowledge, which brings me to, where can my listeners find you to learn more about your story and to learn more about postpartum psychosis?
Of course, yes. It's just a small little platform that I've got on Instagram, but you can find me at Postpartum Psychosis Mama on Instagram, MUMMA.
Yes, that'll be linked in the show notes. So check the show notes and you can just go and find Emma.
There's all photos of me and my babies, and I sort of put it into a little bit of a timeline, a little bit of storytelling in there. So
yeah, no, I love your authenticity and your transparency, and it really echoes sort of my philosophy in life. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm not going to be ashamed of this. This is a part of me. It doesn't define me, and that kind of, I just get that vibe from you as well.
Thank you, Chelsea. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. You are amazing. I could just sit here and give you compliments all day, but
I don't do it very often.
Well, here's some for you to take with you.
That's great.
I so appreciate you making the time to share your story with me, and I definitely would love to connect again. But it is now past my bedtime.
You need to go to bed.
It is time for me to go to bed. I have to get the kids up and ready for school in the morning. But
it's time for me to bleach my shower.
Well, you have fun doing that.
I will. Thank you, Elsie.
Just thank you so much.
Thank you for holding this space. Thank you for allowing me to be me. It's taken a little while to get this back, and to not feel ashamed or shy. It's nice to be able to just and kind of relive my experience. It's refreshing to sort of get it out, and I hope that it can help just even one person. More would be great, but if it can just
I know it will. Emma, thank you so much for what was truly an emotional, relatable, and informative chat. Your ability to find joy and glimmers in life, as well as your tenacity in advocating for yourself and others, is so beautiful. I can't wait to see where your journey takes you. You can keep up with us on Quiet Connection by following us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at Quiet Connection Podcast. You can help our community grow by leaving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and consider sharing our episodes on social media. To share your personal journey, you can contact us through our website at quietconnectionpodcast.com or by email at quietconnectionppmh@gmail.com. Join us next time when another story is told and you realize you are not alone. I see you.